Yeah. Can you see it live? All right, welcome everyone. This is the June 2023 meetup. This is our 8th Remix NYC meetup. Yeah. I am one of your organizers, Adrian. You've probably met the other ones, Quentin and Steven. They probably checked you in. But we're your organizers. I think this is going to be important later. Like right now. This is our code of conduct. This is adapted from the Remix Comp code of conduct. This is the short version. You can go for the longer version and the link below. But TLDR, don't be a jerk. And we ask you to go a step further and actively be nice to everyone. Oh, I love these chairs. So we do take this seriously. Please treat everyone the way you want to be treated, or even better. And if you have any problems, please find one of the organizers, which are these guys. Next up, we are on Discord. So if you are new to Remix, if you're not part of the Remix Discord, this is the link to join the Discord. And then you can find us in the NYC channel under the Meetups category. Cool. We also have a YouTube channel. We are streaming on it live right now. Hello, Internet. This is where you can find recordings from past meetups and the current live stream. We have a call for speakers and a call for sponsors. Spoiler alert, we don't need one for next month, but if you are interested in speaking, please use the QR code. Fill something out. If you're a first-time speaker, we're happy to help you along the way, but always happy to have speakers. It makes our life easier, specifically like Quentin's, because otherwise we make him do a talk. Our next meetup. So this is going to be a special meetup. We are joining up with the ClickHouse NY user group. So this is going to be on July 19th. And a little bit about ClickHouse. ClickHouse is the fastest and most resource-efficient open source database for real-time apps and analytics. So they're an OLAP database where CockroachDB, for example, is an online transactional processing database. I feel like I got the acronym a little wrong, but transaction's the important part. So we will be joining up with them. You'll get to meet people from the ClickHouse community. They'll get to meet you. I hear that Quentin is going to be doing a little demo. And I'm recording it live, so, putting you on blast. So hopefully we'll see you all at the next meetup. Shortly after this one is over, well, maybe not shortly, maybe next week, maybe we'll put up where you can RSVP for it. One at a time. And then this is where we thank our sponsors. Our sponsor tonight, of course, CockroachDB, for providing this wonderful space. Hopefully you enjoyed the views outside. And also the pizza, which maybe we should have ordered more, but we live, we learn. So into the sponsor pitch. We recently had, hi, I'm Adrian. I'm a developer advocate for CockroachDB. I put on my other hat. We recently had our spring release, 23.1. And so a couple new things that might matter to people like you. We're now available as a service on Azure. So we can now handle all 3 clouds. How about that? And then the thing that I think is really, really cool is multi-region capabilities in CockroachDB serverless. So you can have, I think, six or 9 regions around the world that you have access to. You can pin data to the different regions. If you deploy your application in different regions, then it's really going to help you cut down latency for those users. So you can go read or write to any of those nodes. But that's a little bit about our release. Here is some general information about CockroachDB and CockroachDB serverless. You can start for free. Postgres compatible. And we have some QR codes, so you can sign up for a free account. Learn more at Cockroach University, free online learning. And then also we have our definitive guide, which just came out with O'Reilly, and we will give that to you for free as a PDF. Be sure to use these links because anybody that signs up or grabs the book from them, this meetup gets credit, and it only helps us get more pizza and use the space. I see some cameras up, so I will pause. Cool. All right. Oh, in the back. Dun, 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 dun. This would have been a good time to... You know what? I've got a couple more slides, but let me go ahead and skip to the fun giveaway. So I have up here some hex bugs. They're really fun if you have a dog or a cat, but I'm going to give some away to people who can answer cockroach trivia, not the database, the insect. So the first question is, what is a cockroach's favorite smell? You use it in baking. No. No. Transactional. It's also a flavor of ice cream. Oh, did everybody say it at once? I think you said it. Vanilla. Woo. I'm going to run and I was going to throw it, but I'm really bad at that. All right. I got more. How many knees does a cockroach have? Closest without going over. How many knees? Okay, I heard 14. Who said 14? You said, so the closest without going over is 18. All right. All right. And then last one. Let me pick another good one here. How many days does it take for a cockroach to reach full maturity? Closest without going over. Did somebody say 100? I was like, I don't want to give that. Who said 100? Yeah. All right. So the answer is 103 days. We're just going to we're going to move on. All right. So hopefully everybody had time to take pictures of those and you learned a little bit about cockroaches. And I have so many more facts that I'm not going to use right now. And then I think this is the last slide for Cockroach Labs, but we are having an engineering open house. If you enjoy being in this space and you would like to come and talk to our engineers and our engineering managers and architects and, ask all the hard-hitting questions about CockroachDB and distributed databases and everything, sign up. And it looks like we have cool swag for the first 50 attendees. So how about that? That's going to happen. I believe it's next week. Yeah, I didn't make a QR code. I'm sorry. All right. I will also post this link in our Meetup group. Cool. Now we've come to a time where we like to do what we call quick pitches. Are you hiring? Are you looking for a job? Do you have a project that you need help with? Do you have something else? Now is your time. We'll give you a chance, we have a microphone here. You can stand up and say your pitch. Anybody. No one tonight? All right, moving on to tonight's speaker. So we have senior educator at Brainstorm here in New York. We have Patrick McCullough with a farewell to Mearns. I'm going to give you that one. Do you want a lapel mic? We forgot to ask that.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm pretty loud.
Well, so you need to use a mic for the people at home.
I can use the mic.
Okay.
Let's see. So this is just automatically going to show up there, or do I need to?
It should.
Okay. Fancy slideshow here. I'm not going to fully maximize this because I'm going to be jumping between some VS Code and a web application. But this talk, as Adrian teed up, is called A Farewell to Mearns. Very high-minded Hemingway reference for those of you of the intellectual persuasion. And it's just how I converted a Mearns stack site to Remix. So before we talk about what that means exactly, I'm Patrick. I'm from Oklahoma originally. I've been in New York since 2005. There is an old man emoji because that was quite a long time ago. And as was mentioned at the beginning, I am a software engineering educator at BrainStation, not Brainstorm. I don't know what that is. And BrainStation's a really cool place. I'm hesitant to mention my affiliation because I am not an expert at Remix. So whatever I say about Remix, don't hold against BrainStation. I am completely on my own here. If for some reason you do want to connect with me, I have a LinkedIn and a GitHub, both of which are PG McCullough. You can ask me about it later if you're that inclined. So this is not a fancy slide deck. I just kind of have my key points on here. And so in terms of like why I thought it might be valuable to give this talk is somebody who honestly is not the smartest Remix person in the room right now. There's really two different pieces to it. I think we have some people who come to these meetups that, are new to Remix, have not tried out Remix yet. For them, I wanted to just be able to share the kind of down and dirty my experience, how I converted a React Express stack application to Remix. I'm not focusing on like the best practice or a really deep dive into the how and the why of server versus client in a full stack application. I'm really showing like what my pathway was as I kind of tried to crack it and understand it. And even people who, this is not something they need to know because they're already very well familiar with Remix, I think that there's a lot of value in this because I think that when you adopt a new technology, there's a very dangerous place you get to where it makes sense. And I feel like once something really makes sense to you, it becomes much more difficult for you to onboard new people to it. Because for those of you who have been using, SSR, whether it's, Remixed or Next for a while, it probably makes so much sense to you. It seems ridiculous when people complain about React talking about going into server components and client components because it's just so intuitive to you. So I think that by offering up my experience as somebody who really didn't get it, what my challenges were, what my big questions were, can be a helpful thing to sort of hold on to. Because obviously we all come here because we care about community, we care about other engineers, we really want to help out people who are new to it to understand and to get on board with it. So again, that's kind of what I set out to do with this talk. So personally, why I switched to Remix, first of all, because it was the shiny new thing. I'm always chasing those. When I hear about something cool and new that a friend's talked about, I'd like to learn more about it and try it out. I saw personally the writing on the wall that React was really moving into this framework direction. We've all probably seen that in the docs that have come out. They're, kind of disowning Create React App to be a little bit over the top with it. And they're really saying you need a framework. So that then I think kind of begs the question, like, why not Next? And it's like, I'm anti-establishment. Next seemed like, the man. Remix seemed a little bit more punk rock. I know a lot of people, and this again is sort of my ignorance on Remix. I know a lot of people get pissed off when you even mention Next and Remix in the same sentence. Like, oh, they're not the same thing. Like, they're totally different. It's like for a new guy coming on the scene, it's like they look like they're offering up the same service. I also really wanted an easier deployment. I had, a React and Express stack. The Express was, this elastic beanstalk Amazon thing. The React I had hosted in an S3. And it was just kind of a pain to have to update this one, update that one. I really thought it was appealing if I could just sort of have this single instance that I'm deploying. So that was appealing. And then finally, for me, really the huge thing was SEO. I'm sure I don't have to explain to most of us why that matters. But if you have a classic MERN application, Google initially hits that website, all they're going to see, obviously, is just that index.html. It's going to be a div with just a root, and there's nothing in there. Now, there's a lot you can argue there, well, Google's smart enough to actually load the JavaScript and see what's in there, aren't they? It's like, yeah, they are. Will they? Probably not when you're Patrick McCullough and your React site, is not of any note to anybody. And I can definitely affirm that switching to Remix drastically improved my SEO, and I could see the frequency with which it was getting scraped went up markedly. So I didn't do any animations on this. I would have had a very amusing sort of click and show the before and after. The point I'm trying to make here is that what I did was I took a website that I had that was a React application with an Express backend, and in converting it to Remix, I wound up with something that looked and behaved exactly the same way. Nothing changed about it from a user experience, and that was kind of what my goal was. I'll jump in and look around to it. I'm certainly not trying to market this as let me show off how cool my site is. It's not. It's just a personal thing that I use as my kind of developer sandbox. But so the first challenge that I encountered when I had, this desire to switch my website to Remix was I didn't even know where to start. And I think that's something that we all kind of forget about, right? We all know that we can use Vite, we can use Create React App to build a React application. But when you're starting out, you don't even know, where is the door? How do I open this up and get into it? And I can say for myself personally, I have, I think, a very particular learning style. I really want to know, exactly what Remix is. So when you're looking up tutorials, they're trying to push you a lot of the time to start with a grunge mix or an indie mix or a blues mix. And it can be confusing because you're like, well, this one, uses this type of database and it uses this type of deployment model. Is that what Remix inherently is? And so it actually, honestly, took me a really long time just to find, okay, npx create Remix, and that'll just give me sort of the bare bones Remix application, which is what I want to start with. I want to know exactly just what Remix is at its core. So my first step, once I just kind of scaffolded this Remix project, was I took all of the components that I had in my React application and I just moved them into my Remix application. Remix kind of scaffolded itself where it had a root that I could kind of use, and I could just load my components in there. The wonderful thing about SPAs that we all love is we can have these sort of fetch requests to our server from anywhere inside a component, inside a route, whatever the case may be. We can just fetch the data we need for that component and pull it in. And so that's where I started with Remix. I just had my components and they were still making the fetch requests to my Express application that I still had up and loading the data that way. So at this point, I kind of technically had a Remix application. I wasn't taking advantage of what the technology does at all. I wasn't getting sort of the caching and the SSR, but at least I was sort of, on the dance floor at this point. Now, the first couple of hiccups I hit on the way of just making sort of this, components that were using fetch requests inside of Remix got me to join the Discord. And Discord, I'm old, that wasn't something I was already utilizing. And Discord definitely saved the day for me because I went on, I put a question that was a huge blocker for me. I was able to get some replies. I actually got one from a guy named Sergio that many of you are probably familiar with. He's sort of a legend. Yeah, and I think it really kind of goes to show how amazing the community can be, that you have somebody taking the time to explain a very, very, very stupid question to me. So first pro tip there is to definitely join the Discord. So after I'd done that, I had all of these components that made their own individual fetches. I knew that kind of my goal was going to be to work my way down and just remove those fetches and use, get the data in a, sort of remix way. Okay, so let me take a second here. Again, I'm not trying to show off this website. It's super basic, but this is my personal website. It's just kind of like a, social media clone type of thing. When I got mad at Facebook and Instagram, I requested all my data. I, kind of like wrote a script to just put it all into a personal database. And so the main thing I liked about Facebook was that you could have the on this day. So I just kind of cloned that. So I have all my own like little personal kind of blog posts here. So that's essentially what my website is. It's just a bunch of different posts that come from a website. I've got the ability to kind of like update a little cover image and, text and profile image and all that stuff. So just so we have some context for kind of what the project was here. To start with, the blog posts were going to be pretty easy. They existed inside of a Mongo database. And for whatever reason, I was not a big ORM guy. I was using just like the MongoNB node driver in my Express application. And this was another kind of roadblock I hit where I could not find documentation for it. Like everybody was using, Mongoose or some sort of ORM, and I couldn't find examples of using just a MongoDB node driver with a Remix application. So this is where people might be very upset at this. I stand by it. I found somebody who did a tutorial on how to do it with Next, and I was able to copy that code and utilize it. So that was kind of another sort of, dirty pro tip. A lot of the time, things that you can find with Next, which is frankly better documented. There's more people out there using it and posting questions and solutions on Stack Overflow. I was able to make something that was kind of made for Next work within Remix to, connect to my MongoDB. Now that I had the database connected, the kind of first thing I learned about in my intro to the server stuff was using loader functions. Okay, so basically, I won't go kind of too deep into my code here, but if I were to go to just sort of my, homepage route, and I'll zoom in on this in a second. For those who have not interacted with this before, but are familiar with, having like a node backend, you'll see that we have the ability in Remix to do any of the sort of stuff we've done with a database that we would usually be doing on the server side. So this is my route for just kind of my home page. And here inside of this loader function, I have all of the database pulls I'm doing. I look and see like if I'm logged in as the administrator, then I'm going to pull private posts that the public won't see. Otherwise, I'm just going to pull the ones that are, set to a public privacy state. And then I can return that, and then I have, a use loader data that can access any of that. And then any of my child components from this also are going to have access to that loader data. So that was sort of an easy start. I've got my posts. That's an array that I can map through and then load a component that's the same component I had originally, just with data that's been pulled from Remix. So that was kind of the first big checkbox. I had all of my posts down here being done the Remix way without sort of a JavaScript fetch by the client. So with that achieved, felt like I was on track. One thing I will point out that was a pain for me that took me a little while to figure out. I use dangerously set inner HTML because all of my database entries for my blog posts are just pure HTML. So I need to, kind of just actually run that HTML inside each blog post. When I was doing that, I kept getting these errors. A really common error you'll see when you're using Remix where it says what was loaded in the server does not match what's being loaded in the client. And what I realized was I was making containers for my HTML that were, like inline span tags. And sometimes my HTML would contain a div tag. And when you're putting this like, kind of block element inside of a inline element, the HTML kind of winds up sort of like a lot of times like refactoring itself to, kind of be appropriate. So what was done in the server with the div inside of the span is not going to be rendered on the client. That was something I scratched my head on for a long time. I just needed to make the parent a div itself, loading the dangerously set inner HTML. But I was on my way. Okay. And now this is really where I was kind of forced to confront what was going on. I was able to do a lot of damage up to this point without having any clear idea what I was doing. But right around here is where I really had to kind of try and figure out what is the difference between what's happening on the client and the server in my Remix application. And it's a testament to Remix that I was able to get as far as I did without having any idea what I was doing. But a couple of things were kind of my initial problem. Like I was trying to do an authentication system where I was storing, like a JOT token inside my local storage. And I found that, if I'm inside of a loader and I try to do local storage, it says, no, we can't do that because this is running on the server and we don't have access to your browser, right? So that was kind of like the first thing that gave me pause. And then similarly, the fact that I could not have loaders in my components because I had been so long in the SPA system that I can make a fetch from wherever I want to. The header, the child, this, that, the other thing. And now I'm really limited to kind of running these database queries just in my routes, not inside of the components. And I had all sorts of little things like, being able to, compose and send an email where I need to be able to send a post request to my, email client's API. Being able to kind of upload pictures up here, that was a real problem for me, that I was limited to, using the server inside of these route components rather than somewhere else. So that held me up for a really long time. And I was looking around because most of what you seem to see is, oh, well, you need to have a form inside of your route. And I couldn't do that. I needed something inside of the component. And I should have credited this. There's somebody who wrote an article that's called, Full Stack Components in Remix. Thank you very much. Okay, there it is. But so basically the kind of workflow that I found for it, and again, the thing that I struggled with was, am I doing this the right way? Is this an acceptable Remix way of doing things? And what I found ultimately was that it's okay to make resource routes. So with resource routes, you're going to basically have sort of like your Express server in a sense with these API endpoints that are going to be in your routes. So previously, my routes really just consisted of the forward-facing stuff. And for me, because it is a basic blog, there's really just the home page and then the individual post pages. So there's my index file and then the by post ID if you click on a specific one. But what we can also do inside of our routes is to have, whatever you want to call it, the API route where you just have these sort of API endpoints for, your own site to use. So this really kind of opened the door for me. I was able to make these API endpoints inside of them. Like I have here, a React page. This is where if somebody clicks on an emoji, it attaches it to that post. It writes it to the database. So similarly to our loader, we have here an action function. And within this, we're able to, take data that was submitted from a form and do whatever we need to, write something into the database, get something from the database, whatever we need. And then on the front end, there is a wonderful tool called UseFetcher, which will basically give you this sort of Remix fetch tool where you can go in, you can post data, you can receive data, and the UseFetcher has this wonderful kind of optimistic UI where it'll give you sort of updates on where that request is. The request was received, the request is loading, the request has completed. So you can, really utilize it that way and have this wonderful sort of seamless experience, which is what I had been really, accustomed to using a SPA, that I can request anything from anywhere. It can be done. When it's done, I can, have the UI updated accordingly. So, that was one of the big things that I really struggled with because I just did not see it, super clearly specified anywhere that was, an approach to take. And maybe it's not an ideal approach, but it worked really well for me. After that really kind of opened the doors. Once I was able to use UseFetcher and have a resource route, it really almost kind of brought me back full circle to having an SPA. Because from anywhere I want to, I can use my UseFetcher. I can have a resource route that does whatever I need to do with the server. After that, I had some sockets to deal with. I heard murmurings that Socket.io was not well suited to Remix. I think that might be baseless. I see a lot of stuff written about using Socket.io with Remix. But for whatever reason, I didn't think it was a good solution. So I went on and I Googled some alternatives. And just like I had through Discord been connected to Sergio, by Googling how to utilize Pusher, I came upon another much vaunted member of the Remix community, our own Mr. Adrian. And he had just happened to have on Cockroach Labs a really great tutorial on utilizing Pusher as sort of a replacement for Socket. And I just shamelessly ripped off, copy paste job, everything he did, and then went absolutely nuts with sockets everywhere. It's a beautiful thing. I'll show it in a second, even though it's not super exciting. So I didn't really mention, I had an issue with I want to write something to local storage, right? And I can't really do that because I don't have access to the browser on the server side. What I was able to use there is we can throw it in a use effect. It'll, kind of know that it's a client piece and it'll run it that way. I had another issue with localization. On my website, whenever I kind of change my, cover image or my profile picture, it reflects that in the date that they were uploaded. And I don't remember if I was using like date.js or what it was, but I have some sort of like, relative, kind of timestamp converter thing. And that one gave me a lot of grief too, because, I think it was something, and again, I'm not an expert in this, but the server, is like in Columbus, Ohio or something on Central Time. My client is on Eastern Time. So when the server rendered, it had something that was different than what the client rendered. And that gave me red in my console, and I can't have that. So I just wrapped the thing in a use effect, which I told Ryan he did not see as an acceptable way of dealing with that. But it worked for me, even though, we lose the benefit of actually having it kind of in the server. So localization would be something that I'd be looking ahead to. I-18, I've heard a lot of good things about. Back when I had a spa and I was able to use XHR rather than Fetch, it was a lot easier to get progress on my uploads as I was doing that. That's something I want to explore, how we can, get that going in Remix. And then just a final one that probably has an easy enough solution is being able to kind of combine having a modal with a route. I basically have a login endpoint, and I want it to be a URL, but it's difficult to, or I didn't see, kind of initially how I can make it be this modal without having to kind of redraw the back separately. So I'm sure it's something we can tackle, but that's a next step. But yeah, I'll go ahead and leave it there. Again, not meant to be any sort of grand exploration of the ins and outs of Remix. Just one guy's experience switching from a Mern stack to Remix. Definitely a great experience. Has really made me fond of the framework, and I hope everybody else will, give it a try too. If you haven't, if I can do it, you can. And yeah, I'll leave it there. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try and answer those to the best of my ability.
Awesome. Any questions?
When you explain it that thoroughly, there's probably not a lot to ask. Oh.
Let me give you my for the people at home.
Hello, people at home. So in this new application, you're basically no longer using Express at all, right? It's all handled by Remix?
Exactly. Yeah, that was like kind of the big success is like when I finally kind of was able to go in and like, because I just would do, a Command F inside of my Express application or inside of my Remix application looking for the stray fetches that I still had. And as I worked through each one, I got the last one, and that was a delight.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, can you tell us more about how you noticed SEO results quickly, and did you have any other performance changes?
Yeah, I haven't been like super, attentive to like trying to, like benchmark anything in terms of speed. But I can just say the way in which Google really kind of sees my website has been pretty remarkable. Where is it here? It's always tough with the customization. Where do we go? But it's just, I can tell Let me see if I put this in directly here. It's not showing up right now, but I can basically just see that like the blog posts that I get are, showing up here much more quickly. Before I had Remix, it would really just kind of like grab whatever was here kind of permanently inside my little bio. But ever since I've had Remix, I'm not saying it at the moment, but oftentimes like there will actually be one of the more recent photographs even like kind of included in the search results. And, I can just tell that it tends to be, much more up to date. There was never really anything, kind of fresh that was popping up in Google before I went to Remix. Anybody else?
Thank you for sharing how you were changing your website. It's a cool and interesting approach to getting to learn it. Do you see yourself trying to build any new apps or projects from scratch in kind of like the remixy way of doing things?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, now that I've done it, like it's all I've done. Like I deployed another one recently just for a friend, and it's really just kind of my go-to at this point. This one I paired with Payload CMS, so that's something I've been really interested in as well, is like making sort of like these monos. Like I feel like Remix lends itself really well to working with CMS, headless CMS. So I've been exploring that a lot, but yeah, I mean it's hard for me to envision going back to a spa at this point, especially just because not having to have two separate applications is just really appealing to me now. And I mean, again, like, not that I want to bow to peer pressure, but it just seems so much on the wall that frameworks are kind of where React is going to be, that, that's where I'd like to be as well. And especially as somebody who, does teach people, about going into software engineering, I feel kind of like I should be up on it. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Are we good?
So I have a question.
You do.
You moved this from an Express app. Did you choose Express as the backend for Remix as well?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
I did like that's kind of one temptation, because I've also, again, chasing shiny new things, like really been into Dino. But in terms of like connecting that with Remix, like I kind of messed around with it for a little bit and it seemed a little bit confusing. And like, I mean, you still have to have node modules anyway, it seems like. So I don't know, that would probably be my next exploration, is like seeing about, using Dino with it. Oh. And there's my pusher going to work.
They look just like us.
Yeah, right. I hope everybody signed their consent form. Remix. There we go. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll ask one now. So it seems like you've just enabled full customizability on the front end for yourself, so that you can just kind of update whatever you want here.
Yeah.
So what was the thought process there versus using a CMS and just kind of like building it yourself?
Well, for me, like I had issues with, Facebook and Instagram, and obviously like I really love the convenience of them and being able to share things and capture moments. And I've always really loved, just kind of like a pure sort of, front end client facing, editing system. So that was it. I just wanted to replicate what I had with Instagram and Facebook. I didn't even really get into my editor, but I've got, this thing that I really enjoy. I don't know if I have any photos to share, but it's like I'm using, I don't know if anybody's seen Lexical. It's a meta open source product for kind of like what you see is what you get editor. I was able to make a contribution to them. They didn't pay me, but so I've been using that. It's a lot of fun, but it's just kind of a nice sort of a WYSIWYG text editor, because I wanted this to be something that was like Instagram or Facebook, where I see something, I want to take a picture, boom, there it is. I don't have to like log into the admin panel and like, have anything like that. And I mean, it's a sort of a separate thing. I kind of had a vision at one point before I remembered I'm really lazy of like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could actually kind of decentralize these social medias and like you actually just sort of deploy your own thing and maybe you have some sort of ecosystem where you can connect. And like I feel like now that I actually know what's going on, like, you have like Mastodon and Lemmy are kind of taking that approach already. But yeah, so I was kind of trying to make something that I thought could be easily replicated for people who just wanted to have their own sort of personal social media page.
With having a fully customizable front end experience, did you run into any like race condition issues while building your website in Remix?
Like how would you mean?
Like sending multiple requests to the same endpoint type of.
No, I haven't had any issues to date. I mean, part of it is probably that, I go easy on it, like, as I'm using it. Because I mean, like, I've got like a free plan from Vercel, like, this thing is not like, setting any like world land speed records. But no, I mean, it seems like it works really well. I've encountered a couple of things, and I mean, I think they would be fairly easy to debug. Like, I think if I, kind of go in and delete multiple emails, well, in that case, it worked. But sometimes it seems like it'll hang in the loading stage of getting the response back. I think that if I, just kind of tried to debug that a little bit, I could probably do it. But for the most part, like it's worked. Like use fetchers are really beautiful. Like, I mean, I've kind of probably abused them. I have so many different like fetchers in a component, doing this and doing that. And they, seem like they play nicely together.
Okay.
Has everybody been sated curiosity wise?
Awesome.
I'll just grab yours. Awesome. So, a couple comments. If you are looking for something to do, yeah. Sorry, yeah, please give him a round of applause. I no longer use pusher channels because I'm really into server sent events. So our friend Sergio wrote a really good blog post about doing that. And so that's what I use now. I need to plug this in. And then well, yeah, things are moving. Things are moving quickly.
What's there? No, I mean that tutorial actually was like this is for next one.
Oh yeah, that was like the first thing that I did whenever I got here. Was that the ugly sweater app that I built?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I need to redo that one in Remix. That was before I started using Remix. The other thing, Jacob Paris, look up his blog. He has a lot of good tutorials on how to do some of the things that you're doing. And then the question about how to handle modals. If you look up the post by Sabin, Sabin the dev is the Twitter, but he has a really good guide for using Remix with MongoDB. But there's a lot of like component type stuff like the modal and how he handles that as like a child route. So yeah, some things. But great talk. You're way more creative on your site than I am. I cannot seem to make something for myself. I'll make something for everybody else. But awesome. Yeah. So like pretty painless. If you would like to come up and speak about anything, go back in time and scan that QR code, and I can actually, let me go back to it. Yeah, there we go. Well, we'd love to have you speak. But other than that, that wraps up this portion of the meetup. We invite you to hang out until 8, and then we will kick you out at 8:30. But please enjoy, well, the pizza's gone. Please enjoy the company and the outdoor space. Thank you for coming, and we hope to see you next month. And I'm going to end the stream now. Bye, everyone.